Welcome to Riverdale After Dark, a podcast about the CW's Riverdale that's supercharged, superpowered, and ready to go. I'm Alex.
You know that feeling when you're up late at night on a Halloween and you're like, I'm not scared, but because you're thinking about how you're not scared makes you a little scared, and then you get scared and pretty soon you're terrified? That's what Riverdale is. I'm Justin.
I'm Pete.
And we are going to be talking about, I don't even know exactly what to call this. This is exactly the mid-season premiere, but this is the official kickoff of Season 6 after the Rivervale event.
Right, it's Dale, no longer Vale.
Or is it?
Yeah.
We'll get into that on this week's podcast.
I don't know where I live.
Season 6, Episode 6, Chapter 101. Unbelievable. Ow! What? I'm doing a little unbelievable. Anyway, if you have been away from Riverdale for a while like we have, though I guess Season 5 wrapped up in October, so not as long as usual, but brief bit of recap for you before we get into the episode. Now, when we left off, Betty and Archie had finally decided to seal the deal on their relationship, only to encounter a bomb left by Hiram Lodge, who was leaving town. He left them one last little present.
It was left by us, the viewers.
I don't know what that means exactly.
Disagreement of this relationship.
Oh, it was specifically you. Okay.
That's a weird take. You're on a Hiram side?
Yep.
Also, you said you left it yourself? Be the page?
Well, Justin, you definitely called Betty and Archie, as I think what's going on here. Thanks to some shenanigans happening in the alternate universe of Rivervale, the story changed a little bit, and Betty got a call from a mysterious someone, we only know it's a man's voice, we don't know anything about him, who warned them to get out of the house. So they did get out of the house in the time, kind of. We'll get into that in a moment. Meanwhile, Jughead was in the garage typing on his manuscript and dealt with the aftermath of the explosion there. We saw that at the end of the 100th episode, where it blew up right behind him. And as we get into this episode, as we'll see, he is dealing with some repercussions from that. Jughead has been dating Tabitha, Reggie, and Veronica are building a casino, unbeknownst to the newly incorporated town of Riverdale, which has a new town council of its own. We don't really get into that this episode, but just so you know, as a little bit of background there. Meanwhile, Cheryl had been experimenting with some witchcraft thanks to her ancestor, Abigail Blossom, and had found out that the ancestors of Betty, Archie, and Jughead had burned Abigail at the stake, decided to put a curse on the entire town. And as we find out this episode, that also has repercussions of its own. There's also a smaller Cheryl named Britta who is living with them in the Blossom household, along with Nana Rose Blossom. And Tony and Fangs are officially together, leaving Kevin, who had decided to pursue his Broadway dreams, on the outside. That goes through some changes this episode as well. And they are back together, leading the Serpents to glory, back to their old gang days. Meanwhile, the Ghoulies had been working for Hiram. We get into that pretty heavily this episode. And I'm sure there's a couple of other things we probably need to mention, but those are the big ones. Now,
well, not the big ones. I mean, first off, you left off the fact that we don't know anything about the cats still. There's no,
Well, here's the thing. From cats to dogs.
Yes, there's trouble brewing. I think we do know because we see Glenn in this episode. And he is holding a briefcase. And I don't want to keep pushing my point, but he is notably holding a briefcase in this scene.
Okay.
Yes, I didn't mention Glenn. Glenn is important to mention. He is... It's generously Betty's ex-boyfriend. They hooked up a bunch in FBI Academy. He is kind of a jerk. They investigated TBK, the trash bag killer, together. That has been
the hero of the episode.
Oh boy! Wow, things you've really changed this season. My goodness, you're pro Hiram, pro trash bag killer. What's happened to you, Pete?
There's a lot that's changed in the downtime between Riverdale coming back.
Well, I find that a little bit unbelievable. Oh,
what is this new thing we unlocked with Zalman here? I don't like it.
Let me just say, based on the way this podcast is so far, I think we are matching the energy of Riverdale.
Well, let's talk about this because I want to be straight up. I want to be honest with you guys for the first time in my entire life about this episode. Honest. I watched this episode and I was like, there was a brief moment where I was like, I'm out.
Wow.
What?
Honestly, I'm not. The end result of this is I thought about it, I'm going to get over it, and of course I'll be fine. But we've talked a lot on the podcast about the kind of bubble of reality around Riverdale and how if they ever went full on supernatural, it would break that bubble. That's exactly how I felt watching this episode. For those who have not seen it, spoiler warning here, I guess. But we find out that Betty and Archie have superpowers.
The fact that if this show went more towards normal shows and shows that we watch as comic book fans, you're like, well, I would be done.
Well, that's what I'm getting at.
That's where I draw the line.
Well,
that's
because,
in my
here's
wheelhouse of things that I like.
Yes, absolutely. I already watch superhero shows. I already watch supernatural shows. One of the things that I really like about Riverdale is it always skirts there, but never goes in that direction. And Betty's power, with that, I was like, all right, she bonked her head really hard and is maybe seeing auras or maybe not. Though by the end of the episode, I think it's pretty clear she is seeing evil auras.
Oh, so floating babies you're okay with, but fucking if somebody sees an aura, you're like, whoa.
No, you're literally not listening to me.
I never listen to you.
Thank you. FYI. I appreciate it. This is a good conversation.
Yeah.
This is great. Sorry. This is how conversations work.
Good news for you, Alex. This has never been a conversation. This is three separate shouts is what we do here.
But what I'm getting at is the Betty superpower thing I was willing to go with because it felt like one of those classic Riverdale things of did she hit her head really hard and think she sees auras or is she actually seeing auras? We'll find out in 10 episodes' time.
Right.
But the Archie being able to push nails out with his hands, being invulnerable, super strong.
Unbreakable Archie. What is that?
I was like, I don't know how they get beyond this or they explain this. And then when Cheryl was straight up possessed by their ancestor's ghost, that was another thing where I was like, this is too much. This is too much here.
Well,
I'm good.
Well, I think you're right. I think surprising all of us, can't go back. They've gone through the mirror. And I have a good analogy for this. When I was growing up, my mom kept a very neat home, very don't eat in the living room, don't get stuff on the carpet kind of a thing. Right. And then one Christmas morning, we all got silly string in our stockings. And we got up and we got and everyone got into a silly string fight right there. Christmas string. Yeah. It happens. Everyone's got one. Everyone's, it's Chekhov's silly string. Made a huge mess. Silly string. And silly string is moist. It's weird, moist slime kind of a thing. And we made a huge mess. And we were like, that was so fun. And after that, every Christmas, we kept the silly string going. We couldn't put it back. We couldn't put the silly string back in the silly container. And that's what I feel. She was part of it. She was her idea. I got news for you, Pete. She was the one behind the silly string.
No, Santa.
It wasn't a Santa situation.
No, it was Santa, bro.
And
big revelation on our podcast that Santa isn't real.
Come on, man!
No one said that.
Spoilers.
Keep watching Riverdale, and he might be real.
Yeah, exactly.
So what I'm saying is
new legs.
What I'm saying is, I think Riverdale is doing it. They're like, you know what? We want to write as whatever we want, even outside of reality, and that's why we got Ghost Abigail in the cool brooch.
Okay, so I'm going to attempt to try this whole conversation thing. Okay. What's interesting is this show has been insane, and we make fun of how insane it is for years. And it's funny how this one little thing for you is the jumping the shark, when it seems like they've been doing things that are just jumping the shark for so long.
Absolutely. I mean, I think I want to get back to be clear, obviously I'm going to keep watching the show. I will get on board probably by the next episode. When I was watching this, I was thinking back to the first episode of Rivervale, which we talked about here on the podcast. It felt like an adjustment for me to like get my head in the space of, okay, this is what they're trying to do here. Mm-hmm. So I'll be fine. I'm an adult, okay, and I'll be totally fine, and it's not an issue.
You're upset. But you want these teenagers to just be kissing, and then that's about it.
I mean, I'm not going to necessarily argue with you, but the thing that I was going to say about what Pete said is I think, yes, everybody has their line. Like, this is something that I specifically thought about with this episode because it struck me just in a very weird way, is there are lots of people that got to like season 3, and that was a point where it was just too much for them. They were watching it because they wanted to watch a teenagers kissing and occasionally solving dark, weird mystery show. And then when you got into the utter nightmare insanity of the gargoyle, Sex Bunker was season 3, I believe. When they got into the other insanity of the Gargoyle King, that was just like too dark and too much mystery focus for them, and that was their line, and they were out. Or there were people that were like, what's going on with this cult leader who is dressed like Evel Knievel building a rocket and trying to fly off? That's too much for me. So everybody has their lines, and that's absolutely fine. But I think the thing that has kept me going with the show is this idea of like, is it aliens? No, it's not. And it's something equally ridiculous, which is cannibalistic, incestual forest dwellers who build their own suits. But I can get with that, like, because that's the vibe of the show. This thing, and maybe there will be an explanation, and that's the thing that, like, again, it's fine. I'll be on board. It's not a big issue. But I think the fact that, like, it legit seems like Archie is a superhero right now, I go to other shows for that thing. That's my point.
But I think looking back, all the things you just described are wildly intense and like unexpected. In the same way, it's just this is specifically beyond our reality rules about how things happen. So I don't think it's that different. It's just some of the specifics are different. We're fully in soap opera rules for this show, and I love that. I'm here for it.
I think that this episode is kind of like this bridge episode where they're like, all right, Rivervale, but we got to take it back down to Riverdale. But maybe we have one episode here where the shell shock of the bomb has maybe got people thinking they have superpowers and all kinds of things. I think that this is kind of like this in between the two worlds. So hopefully we can settle more in the Riverdale of it. But I understand what you're saying.
Provide some information about that. So Roberta did a interview with Entertainment Weekly.
Oh, you wanted to flex on this?
Yeah, I wanted to flex that I read an interview in Entertainment Weekly.
Sure.
Are you impressed?
I am. Always, they're not in print
when people
anymore.
Are reading, I'm always impressed by reading.
Anyway, he talked a little bit about how they initially had Rivervale as like a 5-episode event, but they had so much fun with it and were kind of, I'm paraphrasing here, were intrigued by it that they figured they could actually make it not that a season-long thing, but take some of the ideas there and some of the themes there and work them in and make season 6 in their minds feel more cohesive as a whole. So you are going to see things like Abigail popping up here, or there's a hint that potentially narrator Jughead, who is stuck in the bunker over in Rivervale, may or may not work in at some point.
He's constantly writing. He better not do voiceovers. This guy's got to crank out material.
Here's what I want to see. I want to see dueling voiceovers. I want to see Riverdale Jughead voiceovering and then Rivervale Jughead voiceovering. They're like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about?
They could try having
we'll get there.
They could try having a conversation just like Pete is.
Okay, so
you're doing a great job, by the way, Pete.
Really great. Almost human.
Let's back up the truck a little bit here, okay? Riverdale is back. Okay?
I want a T-shirt that says "Let's back up the truck." Pete underneath, and every time you say it, I'll my God, he said it. Everyone, all the listeners we got to get "Let's back up the truck."
Riverdale is back. That's very exciting. Okay, it's nice to have this insane show that we love for whatever reasons we're coming to it for. It's very exciting to have it back, even though that it might be disappointing on certain levels right now. Currently, we got to kind of ride it out here so that hopefully we can get things back to a normal place that we feel good about, which we all know is Bughead.
Oh, okay.
Wow,
There we go.
here we go.
It's crazy to me that I was like, oh my God, Pete's making so much sense up until the last word of your sentence.
Oh, exactly. You're like, nope, I'm going to bring this around to my issues.
Well, why don't we jump into the plot? We've certainly talked about overall the episode here.
Am I the only one excited it's back? What's going on?
No, I'm excited. I like
I'm
this
fully
show.
on board. You guys are sort of seem like you're dragging your feet a little bit here and are a little scared, but I'm saying, no, this is
You know what
this is
I'm
a party.
scared of? I'm scared of the fact that you made one reference to cat briefcases, and now I can't get away from them. I see the Batman, they got a cat briefcase there. It's fucking everywhere. Cat briefcases are taking over now.
Man.
It's a phenomenon, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll just briefly explain.
No, we've done that to death.
Toffee is missing, and no one knows where Toffee is, but I actually sort of know and have run this by Roberto himself. Toffee is in a cat briefcase, which, as we all know, is a briefcase with cat food at one end and kitty litter at the other. And
It's inhumane to do to a cat.
Close the briefcase. I'm not saying it's something I do, but it's great for traveling if Toffee is already on the move.
I mean, if it works for Catwoman, right?
That's what I'm saying. And in this episode, Glenn is as I said, holding a briefcase. $1,000. $1,000 says Toffee's in there. Toffee's in that briefcase.
$1,000. Wow.
I will take that bet.
Here, I'm going to throw out something because, Justin, you're sitting pretty high and mighty here right now.
You're goddamn right I am.
You're high on Barchie. I think that's what's going on.
Yeah, it is.
It's my favorite drug, and I'm in it. I'm addicted, and there's a ton of it right now. That's like all the jingle jangle at the party just jumped in my hands. I'm here for it.
Well, why don't we actually jump into the plot here? So we do kick off with the wreckage of the Andrews house where we get the setup. Alice is trying to figure out what happened.
Like we all are.
The first mystery, the first mystery that we're getting here is who is this voice on the phone? We still don't know who this is. Not to immediately jump. You think it's the trash bag killer, Pete? That's your theory?
Yeah, I mean, and we saw him at the end. I'm using he in quotes here, is watching things, is very aware of what's happening in Riverdale, and you mess with Betty, that's it, which is how things should be.
So you think the trash bag killer called because he wants to play his
cares
game.
about Betty, like all of us
Well,
do.
not in a good way, though, right?
Are you saying the trash bag killer is the true hero of Riverdale, Pete? Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, exactly.
Huh. Wow, times have changed.
It's true.
I really hope it's not Chick, man, because then I'll be really upset.
Oh, I would love that. That's my favorite idea right now. I didn't even think of that, but I would love if Chick was the trash bag killer. You literally said the
hero of Riverdale.
I know, but it's
which is Chick. But
my brain is broken right now, okay? My brain has been broken by the show very officially.
I'm also agreeing with Pete's Chick theory. Pete's favorite character back to be the voice that saves Betty's life.
So good stuff, but we do find out here that Archie and Betty, the way that they got out of the explosion was they hid under the kitchen table. Frank later points out,
that's not what happened.
What happened, Pete?
Well, I'm saying it's clear because Frank's like, hey, let's go into the kitchen. What fucking table? What table anywhere? They were lying. And then later they said they were holding each other and the kind of like Archie Invincible bubble.
Yeah, no, they're not lying about it. They got under the kitchen table. The house exploded around them. And Archie, because he is invulnerable, I don't know, what do we want to say? Luke Cage, Superman?
No, he's unbreakable. He's Bruce Willis.
Oh, okay. He's Bruce Willis. There you go.
That's what this reminded me of, especially with I just went from 193 pounds.
Yeah,
I went from 165 to 193. It definitely had that unbreakable energy, but from a more stuff people know about, he is super.
But people don't know about Unbreakable? What the fuck?
No, I think they know about it, but they might know about Superbad a little bit more. Also, he has a super dog. Bingo breaks 4 of his legs, and by the end of the episode, he's healed all of his legs. So, looking forward to Pureheart the Powerful flying around with his super dog in Riverdale in a couple of episodes' time.
This is going to go real bad once Archie's already drunk on power, and it's not going well.
And he'd have his dog all juiced up as well. From a writing perspective, when they said the line, "Yeah, Bingo broke all 4 of his legs," I was like, 4? All 4? You could get away with 2, 1. Like, we don't know. But I was like, this is so Riverdale to be like, yeah, all of his 4 legs broken. I was like, how is this work?
Every bone in his body is broken. At that point, this is me having never owned a dog. Don't you just put down the dog at that point?
How dare you,
okay,
you
Alex.
fucking asshole. Are you fucking serious?
Well, you can't
right now?
ride it anymore.
What?
Ride it.
Yeah, isn't that what you do? Dogs are like horses, but smaller.
That's a slippery slope, Alex, where if I'm like, yeah, I just
turn
broke.
your dog into glue, you fucking old-timey...
I mean, if you need some glue, where else are you going to get it?
I love dog glue. Dog glue is definitely the best. And just watch out, Pete, because if one of us breaks a finger, Alex is going to be like,
Alex
kill
is
him.
going to put us down.
He's going to do full Veronica hitman on us.
Yeah, like, oh, what happened to Justin? He went to the farm.
Before
he had
the
a hangnail
podcast,
on the podcast.
Yeah, before the podcast, Pete coughed a little bit, and I started giving him that old glue look. You know what I mean?
Man.
Yeah, that old dog glue look.
So why don't we talk through Archie's stuff, because we do have a little intersection here, but for the most part, there's classic Riverdale, several trains running at the same time, not quite intersecting. So Archie, that's the character.
F Palace?
I was about to call him
We're
Alex.
just shouting out characters.
You were about to call Archie Alex? That's very telling. That's very telling.
Wow.
So Alex has main character syndrome for Riverdale, which is the craziest version of that.
Terrible news.
Archie, hi, I'm Alex.
Anyway, Archie finds out, as we mentioned, that he is getting super strong. He tests it out by pushing some nails out with his hands and breaking his house even further. But also, he finds out from Tony and Fangs that the ghoulies are gunning for him. And so he goes to the ghoulies and seemingly rips the shit out of them. Yeah, Jesus Christ. He just comes back and Betty sees him slathered in blood.
But apparently he didn't do a good enough job, because now there's a huge war. I mean, if you're going to do that, you got to make a choice. Either you got to end them so this whole thing ends, or, beating them up is just going to make them angrier. I mean, that was just a rookie mistake for the new guy who's got powers. Also, after an explosion, everybody should go to the hospital, right? I mean, everybody should just go, not just Betty. You know what I mean?
Well, I will say, I thought, if we're going to talk about that, yes, obviously they should all go to the hospital. Archie is clearly fine because he has the superpowers. I did like the really small detail that Jughead doesn't have health insurance, and that's the reason he doesn't go there, which leads to his whole storyline with Tabitha, which they also get past pretty quickly, I think, in terms of him, quote unquote, lying about having his hearing loss. But the fact that he's scared about it, he's scared about his monetary situation. Overall, I think the Jughead thing was probably my favorite storyline of the episode, because it was so grounded, was so realistic. And I think ultimately well played by Cole Sprouse and Aaron Westbrook.
Yeah, and I really like how they did his hearing change. Was really sort of put us in there. We could hear some of what was happening around Jughead, the ringing noise and whatnot. I was like, oh, cool sound design really got the story sort of across, showed us, without having it be Jughead be like, hello, I have lost my hearing. Yeah, or that.
Yeah, it was a good job. We've talked about this on the podcast before. I think we actually talked to Brian E. Patterson about it when we interviewed him, but there was an original, I think it was the third version of the pilot, where Jughead had hearing loss initially, and that's something they didn't use. This is my flex. When I talked to Roberto about it, he apparently completely forgot that he had actually written that, because it's been so long, until people started reminding him. So it was something that sounds like it was kind of laying under the surface for a while before it came back here.
That makes me really nervous, because if Jughead's going to have real ramifications, you know what I mean? Archie and Betty can't just have these kind of turn them on, turn them off things, and then Jughead has the reality. You know what I mean? That's
so. Two things about that I'll mention. First of all, it was very darkly funny to me that in this explosion, Archie becomes super strong. Betty is able to see auras, and Jughead's power is he has severe hearing loss.
Yeah.
Like, just kind of sad and awful. Yeah. But again, Roberto did mention this is just the beginning of the journey for Jughead. They wanted to treat at least one of them very realistically and more naturalistically, but ultimately there's going to be some weird swerves and turns with what's going on with Jughead over the course of the season as well. So I don't know what that means, but there is that.
You know that first feeling when you're like in love, you feel like you could punch through a wall.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think Archie has.
Oh, okay.
Because
and you know that other feeling when you're first in love and you can see the aura of evil around people?
I thought you were going to say, you know that feeling of when you're in love and you can't hear anybody else? I was like, where is he going with this?
See, these are all great analogies. We're crushing it.
The other thing that I thought was very funny about Jughead's storyline is like after he hears that Archie's house blew up, right? And this is, if I'm remembering the timeline correctly, Pop's burned down, this also got blown up the same day. He goes to Tabitha and Pop, who are standing in the wreckage of Pop's, and he's like, hey, listen, Archie's house blew up. This is a big story. I gotta go. Yeah. And she's like, okay, what? Pops, the heart of Riverdale blew up. Don't worry about it. No problem. We got it from here, Jughead.
Also, what's heartbreaking about that is Jughead drops what he's doing to rush to Archie, and Archie and Betty couldn't give a fuck about their friend who is losing his hearing.
No. That's too strong. They just don't know about it yet.
Yeah,
well,
he
how
kept
many
it a
days
secret.
does it take to fucking check in with your friend?
He's not talking about it. That was the whole plot line, is he doesn't talk about it even to his girlfriend.
Yeah, I think it's like he feels ashamed of his loss of ability, and I think he has to learn to accept it.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry that I suggested that Archie's the shitty friend, and then you both got really defensive about it.
Well,
Alex thinks he's Archie, and I'm so in the tank for Barchie. I can't really. Archie's a big part of that.
Hey,
he's
thanks
like
for shipping
5 or
me
6
and my
letters.
girlfriend. This is too far?
Yeah.
Too far.
Don't ruin this for me, Alex. Don't ruin this for me. I can't start thinking of Ballix whenever I watch Barchie.
No, I creep myself out. Well, you creep me out, but anyway.
You creeped us, and by us I mean Pete, me, and anyone who's listening to this podcast, as well as the people in the hotel rooms near me who are hearing this conversation. They're like, they don't know anything about what's happening, but that guy's being a creep.
Yeah, the people through the walls are like, shut up, stop spoiling Riverdale for us. Every morning, God. What were we talking about? My excuse here is I think usually like, this is a typical Riverdale mode of I don't think it's worth getting upset about, oh, this character didn't check in with this other character to give them information, because most of the time they don't. The information exchange happens between scenes, between episodes.
Stop fucking working hard to save fucking Archie. Let's go. Let's go.
Where, what? Pete? Where do you want to go?
The next thing. Let's talk about the next thing. Let's talk about how
the
this
next thing is how great Archie is. So,
but Pete, I say, are you mad at Archie just because he's with Betty now?
I'm mad at Archie for a lot of reasons. But one of them being, hey, your friend's losing hearing and you're too busy fucking being fucking unbreakable to notice that your friend is really struggling.
Well, again, I think this is a typical Archie mode of he is focused on the house. He wants to ultimately buy the house, which I thought was a very sweet moment. I thought that was nice. And
do you think she gave him a good deal, or do you think she took him?
No, she ripped him off.
Yeah,
100%. Mary ripped him off.
It's generous to call that a house at this point. When they're closing the deal, and the entire other half of the house is a wreck. I was like, well, fix it up. They let the house be a wreck for a while.
What does the real estate or whatever that was, the lawyer say? She's like, enjoy your enclosure structure. You are now the proud owner of this structure. That was a very funny line.
I love that. Very fun.
Yeah. What did you think while we're talking about selling the house? What did you think about the entrance of Percival Pickens, this new enigmatic, potentially evil businessman who comes in?
Yeah, creepy how much this guy loves his own name and like looks like he's just like derangedly walking around a neighborhood and is just like, ooh, I smell trouble over here. I'm gonna, what's up? He creeps me out.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like this is perhaps a new Hiram type character to come in and be a problem for our crew.
Yeah. And not to keep talking about the Roberto interview, one thing that I liked that he talked about that I thought, Justin, you'll like in particular, he described him, he didn't want him to be like Hiram. They were sort of thinking because they have a supernatural tinge that he'll be sort of like a character out of a Stephen King novel, specifically calling on Randall Flagg from The Stand or the shop proprietor and Needful Things, which definitely sold me on that take, because when he first came in, I was like, all right, it's Hiram 2.0. But if they are going more weird supernatural with him, I think that's kind of neat, and I'm into it.
Yeah, I'm very, very into that. Or the character in Thinner that goes, Thinner!
Oh, that's my favorite character. I love that witch. Should we talk about what's going on with Betty while we're talking about... What's up, Pete? What were you going to say?
No, I was just making a Charlie's Angels reference with creepy thin man.
I don't get that one, but I appreciate
Me neither.
it.
Also,
we have
Charlie's
this conversation.
Angels.
Yeah. Wait, the first one or Full Throttle?
Full Throttle.
Oh, God, of course. I'm so
Everyone's
sorry.
favorite one?
Why don't we talk about Betty? Because Betty is dealing with a lot of stuff here as the FBI investigates Hiram, who has left town. Glenn drunkenly hits on her / starts to assault her before she punches the crap out of him. And ultimately, she kicks all the dudes off the investigation at the same time as she is investigating an evil orderly at the hospital named Trevor, who she shuts down not with the FBI, but with Archie. And then by the end of the episode has affirmed her love for Archie and wants to be in a relationship with him. So lots of stuff going on with her in this episode. Pete, you raised your hand. What's up?
I just felt like this also, to me, felt very Unbreakable, where it was like Bruce Willis' character. Anytime he got near a bad guy, if he touched it, he could sense the evil. Like anytime Betty got near a bad guy, could see the evil on the person. And I just wanted to...
Do you think Jughead's going to be Mr. Glass then?
Yeah, it seems like it.
Well, look, think about it. He was damaged in the same way that that Bruce Willis was given power. Jughead was damaged, just like Mr. Glass.
All right, I'm into this. I'm back on board, guys.
Wow, now you're back.
I really like Unbreakable, so I'm sold on this.
I've been saying
back.
Unbreakable for like 10 minutes, and then you're finally like, Unbreakable. I like it.
You did a good job, Pete. That's how conversations work.
Wow.
Exactly. This is our first time having a conversation with you, too. So give us a second to catch up with the idea that you're not just shouting nonsense. You're saying opinions that you want us to hear.
Speaking of which, Betty is your favorite character. I know you're not totally on board with the Barchi relationship, but how did you feel, Pete, about what she went through in this episode?
Well, a couple of things. I really liked how, she was like, let me handle Glenn. And I was glad that she got that to do that, because I was worried about fucking Archie handling Glenn. But then it turned out Archie was going to have his turn as well. I did like, I wanted her to believe a little bit more in her powers right away, because I was like, hey, that bad guy in the fucking hospital is getting away, Betty. Please go after him. Who knows what other evil things he's doing. But I did like her kind of like, all right, let's clear house, get all the creepy dudes off the FBI, and then we can kind of get some work done.
I really like what Betty's doing in this episode. She's again thrust in a very intense situation, having superpowers, dealing with all this stuff. These characters are all dealing with a lot all the time. And we get her like wrecking shop with Glenn, getting over that relationship that was like clearly a mistake. Trash Bag Killer helps at the end of the episode to sort of bring us to closure when it comes to Glenn. Leaving the cat briefcase to be picked up by...
that's the thing. Like, Glenn's on the way out just to be like, yo, and fucking drop off my cat. Just a quick line, a little something.
Well, maybe he had the cat in the box, and then Archie came in and beat the crap out of him,
Yeah. Could be in a briefcase in the box, just to be clear.
Sure, yeah, of course.
And then the scene at the end with Betty and Archie sort of coming together. They weren't together for a huge chunk of the episode. And then we finally get them, and he's like, Archie's like, it's like a Billy Joel song with him being like, I'm an unemployed, non-unionized construction worker. The non-unionized, I was like, okay, really getting into it. And then they're all in with each other. I'm all in. Like, I'm all in.
Just to talk about the just to talk about the Betty of it all, I thought this was a great Betty in this episode. She seems just overall more confident, less conflicted about everything. She knows what she's doing. She's focused. She's driven. So I thought that was really great to see. In terms of the Archie scenes, I was mostly convinced by their conversation at the White Worm, where it was them talking about their powers. We haven't even seen like Betty and Archie talk as human beings in seasons most of the time. They've had occasional conversations about stuff, but it barely ever happens like that. And it was a delight to see, just as characters who have known each other their entire lives, them talking about something, them being together about something. I thought that was cool.
They do a lot of their best talking in the shower.
No,
just
boy,
like
here we go.
Just like me.
Yeah, if they're going to talk to each other, stand 6 feet apart and kind of be polite is my thing. But I was like, all right, if we're going to get this,
Pete somehow sticking his hands inside the TV screen, being like, "Whoa, separate, kids! This isn't one of those sexual dances you see in the city."
All right,
Pete's chaperoning the Archie relationship.
Hey,
leave a little room for the Holy Spirit over there. Bughead being the Holy Spirit.
Yeah. So if we're going to get this stupid relationship, I think that it was one of those things where superpowers is going to be the only thing that can bring them together, because their love that they have for each other was fucking zero. Like they've been through a lot of shit together, but when they tried to get together, they both said it was awkward and not worth it. And so giving them superpowers to give them something in common to talk about, because otherwise the shit is dull as fuck. Fine. Have your superpower episode. Wow. Have
Get
your little moment. But once Unbreakable's over, you fucking break the fuck up.
That's so angry and swearing. Pete, are you the kind of guy who goes down to the ocean, goes to the beach, and is like, these waves, stop them. These waves aren't real. Let's get rid of these waves. Because you can't fight it. It's happening. You love waves?
Yeah, I love waves. What are you talking about? Listen, some waves know they don't belong together, and some waves know that they do belong together, okay? And so, you know what I mean? Fine, moment in times or whatever, but I'm not going to be happy about it because they don't truly belong together.
So you ship Beachhead is what you're saying.
Yeah.
I was born and raised on Bughead.
That's still a nonsense thing. You've said that several times, and that makes no sense. Both of these relationships are valid. Bughead has been a part of the show. Barchie has been a part of the show. They've been ongoing the entire time we've been watching this show. Right now, they are trying Barchie for real for the first time, and I do think just from a plot perspective, that's exciting to see. I want to see what that happens. I want to see how they work or don't work as a couple. Hold on. All I'm saying is we've never been given a chance.
Oh, bullshit. What was that whole shower bullshit? That was
Pete, like, do you base relationships on that? Like, well, we took a shower. All done now.
Yeah, that's good. I do base relationships on whether or not there's chemistry, whether or not it feels right or doesn't. And they both said it didn't.
I think you should calm it down for two reasons. One, to Alex's point, we have seen Bughead for a long time, and so there's been a change. You have to just know that you had your turn, and now it's your boy JT's turn.
Now,
and right, second point,
I did have this, and since the beginning, since they introduced the show, they introduced this power couple. That's why I say I was born and raised on it, because they brought this whole thing to thing, and then took it away from us. So fine, if this is your time, Justin, you have your time.
Your parents were like, we're switching baby Pete from breast milk to just Bughead. We're just mostly he's going to be born and raised on Bughead. There's a lot of nutrients to help him grow up strong in there. And that's what happened. And look what we have now, a normal person trying a conversation for the first time. There are no nutrients.
Something we can all agree on: tags. Let's talk about that storyline. So Tony and Fag sit down with Kevin and basically have like a Don Cheadle Iron Man conversation of we're together, we're bisexual, deal with it, let's move on. And Kevin's like, all right, sounds good. I'll take care of your baby. And
poor Kevin. Can you just let Kevin go and chase his dreams and not be like, hey, actually, can you put your dreams on hold because we need you to babysit? I mean, that was heartbreaking.
Well, this storyline was when they're like, we can't start a gang war. We have a kid. And they're like, well, let's give it a shot. Let's give this gang war a shot. This was wild. This was very much like sort of turning to camera and being like, yes, we are both bisexual and queer, and we're doing this. Very like looking at camera, talking to the reality of the issues that we've talked about with this relationship. And once we got sort of that little bit of it, I was like, okay, I'm here. I actually like them as a couple, despite all of the sort of weirdness about how they got together. And this whole side of the show feels like like a 90s movie where it's like these people fight by day, parent by night. Kevin's there as the straight man being like, hey, what? I'll take the baby. It's such an interesting mix of tones.
Kevin's not straight, though. I think it's one of those things where we have two great people. We all love Tony. We all think Faze is cool. Fine. You want to put them together, but that's not what we're here for. We're here for Shoney, motherfuckers. Don't give us this temporary.
Can I ask? You said we're all here for fangs. What do you think about shaved fangs? Because that was throwing me a little bit.
Interesting.
It was. I know he did that for the Rivervale episode. Like he shaved it so he could play, what was it, Finn Fogarty or something? Yeah. But coming back to this and him being like completely clean faced, I was like, huh. All right.
It did give me pause briefly. I was like, look at this fresh faced young man here. But I have a feeling that Stubble's going to make an appearance.
Yeah, I think so too. Listen, Vanessa Morgan and Drew Ray Tanner, apparently friends in real life. They have clearly fun in these crazy scenes where they're fighting the ghoulies. I agree with Pete. We got to get back to Shoney, and we'll get to this in a moment, but there's something coming that I can talk about in a moment when we get to that plot line. But I am excited about the idea.
Wait. What did you just say? You know something?
I'll drop something when we get to the Cheryl storyline. We got to get through that first.
So you had to flex on us before you.
All you got to do, Pete, is just sit tight and wait calmly, and Alex will tell us this news.
Stupid, man. Then fucking don't say anything. Just say it when you get to it. Don't be a dick about it.
Classic old tease.
Fucking stupid.
It's a tease, and let me say, Pete, like that. That's a normal way to get. This is part of the conversation.
Nobody talks like that. Don't. I know I'm new to this conversation, but there's nothing worse than somebody who's talking to you and then it's like, if you keep holding on to this conversation, I'll reward you with a little nugget.
I think it's a nice little carrot at the end of this to look forward to.
Fucking bullshit.
And maybe we'll keep one of us from shouting so much. This little carrot. If you're a good boy, you can get a little treat.
We'll see what happens at the end of the podcast, Pete. Are you going to be a good boy and get a little treat? Or are you
Shut
going to be a bad boy and you're going to break all four of your legs?
Fucking piece
Stop
of shit.
swearing so much. You're out of control.
Fucking dickhead.
The one thing that I did want to say is, as frustrating as it is to me that Kevin is not getting to follow his Broadway dreams, I'm excited about the idea of potentially following Kevin as a single dad. I do think that's interesting. Yeah. I don't know how much the show is realistically going to delve into that, but at the same time, like, we've talked so often about Kevin just needs something to do. You know, like, he's good. We like Casey Cott on the show, so this gives him something. So that's something that I'm excited to follow.
Seeing Kevin's face holding that baby was unbelievable. It was really beautiful, and you know, that's
unbelievable.
I'm sorry.
Is that like on a pipe organ? That song?
I'm sorry that I triggered that fucking bullshit again. I'm sorry.
No.
Trigger warning. I'm about to sing unbelievable.
Alex is just putting in his vocals as a temp track. When this comes out, it'll have the actual song. There's no way we would release him going boopy doop.
I'm actually going to release it with the Crumbelievable ad from Kraft. I don't know if you guys remember that. When I released Kraft Crumbelievable. They were little chunks of cheese in a bag, like tiny little chunks of cheese in a bag called Crumbelievable. And the ad was, "It's Crumbelievable."
Stop.
Ow.
Sorry, I'm just checking my notes from all the Kraft products I'm tracking. What's the plot with the Kraft Crumbelievable is
you gotta
dating?
Listen to our Kraft podcast, Kraft After Dark.
Yeah, it's really gets wild after dark at the Kraft factory.
So Veronica put a hit on her father.
No, hold on. It is strange to me with Kevin that we're not dealing with sort of the emotional situation he's in with Fangs. It feels like now we are just shifting him over to like, now you raise this child. So I hope we're also able to, because I think the real issue with Kevin is we're never seeing things from his point of view. Things are always happening to him. He doesn't have a lot of control over his stories in Riverdale. And here again, he's like, a baby is given to him, and it's like, all right, now deal with this. So I want, going forward with this season, to be able to really follow Kevin's journey from Kevin's perspective.
Yeah, I hope so. I did get a tease that apparently things are going to get messy between him and Tony and Fangs, so we're not quite done with that yet. And I think that's also a good thing to deal with because, like you're saying, they do have that Don Cheadle moment, but there's still a lot going on there to deal with, going forward.
We may be approaching a throuple. A Riverdale throuple situation. That was my prediction coming out of this.
I like it. We'll see what happens. Why don't we move over to Veronica? So Veronica calls out a hit on Hiram from very straight, what is his name? Anatoly, the Russian hitman? Yeah. Yep. And he's very quick, very efficient, kills Hiram off screen, mind you.
We all know.
But at the same time, Veronica looks at a picture of him dead. Hermosa is pissed off about it. So it does legitimately seem like, despite the fact that Mark Consuelos left the show in season 5 being like, doors open, that Hiram is dead. He was killed. How'd you guys feel about this?
Why is Hermosa mad? I thought everybody hated Hiram. I didn't understand why Hermosa was like, no, you got a hit on you.
Well, she doesn't like Hiram, but she also has a connection with Hiram as her dad and doesn't want to see her dad murdered.
Yeah, Pete, there's something called nuance in emotions where it's not like a light switch where you're like, I like this person, keep them alive. I don't like them, kill them. You could sometimes have somewhat complicated relationships with people, like the way Alex thinks about himself as Archie, and the way that you and I relate to each other on this show as fans of different aspects, I'll say.
Just to clarify, I don't think there's any character I relate to on this show less than Archie. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Whatever. You're fucking Archie. I just think it's one of those things where... he's a horrible person. He's been doing horrible things for years and years and years. Everybody knows it. You know what I mean? Like, why all of a sudden the guy's dead? And oops, now I care. It was
she's going to feel. Veronica's going to feel guilty about.
You shouldn't. That man has been nothing but horrible to you. Sure, maybe there was moments where he was nice, but he had an evil purpose behind it.
Yeah, but he's your dad. There are complicated emotions in terms of killing your dad. Like, you're going to feel things there.
And I sound like a true parent. Go fuck yourself.
You're right. As somebody who is only a cat parent, you'd be fine if your cat killed you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be
like, you're right, cat. I do deserve this.
Wow. We are weeks away from that happening.
Camila Mendez does a great job with this storyline. I will admit that I was kind of frustrated that we're still talking about Hiram when he left the show. Like, I feel like this was a little bit of a leftover of that plot line because we wrapped it up at season 5, but then we were right back in it here. So hopefully at this point we're moving past getting to whatever the next stage is for Veronica, having her interact with the rest of the characters. I do think she plays really nicely off of Charles Melton as Reggie, and I do like their storylines quite a bit. But I'm eager to get on to whatever the next thing now that Hiram is literally on the back burner of hell.
Wow. We're going to get a cutaway to Hiram in hell, like making a deal with some random devil.
That'd be great.
There's an Archie devil down there that he's like.
I mean, I don't know what the continuity works, but we saw him in the series finale of Katie Keene. Maybe that takes place in hell.
Wow. Strong take for the Keene heads. I just wanted to say about this. Veronica kills Hiram.
Yeah, like a boss.
Because why? Because he went too far by trying to blow up Archie, her ex. That she doesn't. We haven't really heard how she's feeling about Archie and Betty and Archie being together now. And I'm assuming we're going to get that.
Last I remember, before the veil of it all, her and Archie were like really close to giving it a go.
Yes.
Yeah, there was a lot of back and forth there because they decided they were going to move in together, and then all the dudes didn't know who Ina Garden was, and she saw Frank in the shower, and that was too much, so she left.
Yeah. Ina Garden has broken up a lot of relationships.
Absolutely.
And let's think about from a timeline perspective, to the characters on Riverdale, that was like 2 days before this episode.
Yeah, I know.
So
It's wild. I understand that it's wild that, like, I'm on board with that, but I'm not on board with superpowers. That's the thing that's too far for me, but whatever.
But
I think you're right. Just need to have a conversation.
And one more thing about that, though, like I think Veronica did a very heightened version of what happens after a breakup, where one person, the person who's like been broken up with, is like really upset, but is trying to like, okay, well, yeah, I still have feelings for these people. I'm close with them. And then suddenly you're mad because they didn't return your like favorite T-shirt that you left at their house. And this is her version of that is she kills her dad and is going to feel mad about that in relation to Archie, because it's like, look, my dad tried to kill you and I killed him, and now you're with Betty. So I think there's going to be some very heightened, complicated feelings that we're going to get into, and let alone the Betty and Veronica relationship, well, how that was going to change.
Also, where did Veronica get a cool $2 million? You know what I mean? Did
Her
she just
casino,
have
man.
Really?
Her
Already
casino,
it's cranking out that kind of money?
It's been going for at least 2 days now, and that's like cash in the bank. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
I saw her. She
No, I
had a
don't.
Glamour-J egg omelet right before one of the scenes.
The scene, the very brief scene of Betty and Veronica on the couch where they're talking about Hiram, I don't know if this is true, but it seems like there was probably a longer version because we saw in the promo them hugging, or there was a still of them hugging, and I think they were wearing the same outfits. So maybe there was some sort of conversation where they talked a little bit about Betty being with Archie, and that just got cut. Usually when that sort of thing happens, they'll deal with it in a later episode. So to your point, Justin, I do hope that happens. I do hope we get more of that and more interaction.
It's inevitable. And I agree with you. I like Veronica and Reggie together. I think where their energies sort of just line up, where they're like, yeah, we don't follow any rules, and we have money constantly flowing and into our hands.
Yeah. Also, Reggie's decision to be like, yeah, I'm not going to work at the car dealership anymore so I can focus on the casino full time. And then his dad almost dies, and then his dad undies and is absolutely fine and doing great. Lots of stuff with Reggie. I want to see more with him this season overall as well.
I agree. I think Reggie is great. I want more Reggie. And I don't think that Veronica and Reggie are going to make it. It really seemed obvious to me that this episode, Archie and Veronica belong together.
That is
no agenda there.
Not supported by the evidence, sir.
Why don't we move on?
That's exactly why I said it, because it is. Veronica, when he was going through this thing with his father, she was like, I got to split. I got to put a hit out on somebody. Like, I got things to do. I'm not going to be here for you at all. If that was fucking Archie there, she would fucking drop everything. So go fuck yourself with that.
Well, when you're juggling a hit schedule, like, it's hard to focus on your other relationships.
Why don't we move on and talk about Cheryl's storyline, because there's a big one in the episode. So Cheryl thinks that she has cursed Betty, Jughead, and Archie. That's why the explosion happened. She talks to Nana, who burned the scroll from
We got Nana
Abigail.
in this episode. This is exciting. There's nothing better than
Oh my God, I love Nana
Nana
in this episode so much.
Yeah, like,
But
Don't leave any loose documents out around Nana, because she's a quick burner. She likes to burn stuff fast.
Yes, she
fast.
burned the scroll, and they do a very complicated spell, which involves lighting 3 candles made of beeswax. That's the important part of the spell.
Mind your own
with
beeswax.
Britta, but it turns out Britta has been possessed by Abigail Blossom's spirit only at night, and is going and blowing out the candles. Ultimately, they cast another spell, which puts Abigail Blossom's spirit in Cheryl Blossom's body, and she takes over, and she's ready to wreak havoc on the town. Yes,
now,
Pete.
When you said initially, I'm out, I thought it was because of this moment. And I literally was like, if you fucking try to take Cheryl off the table from the show, I will lose my goddamn
That was
mind.
100%. That was the point where I was like, all right, I don't know how I feel about this Betty thing, but I'm going to go with it. I'm just going to watch it because there's a Riverdale excuse. And then when Archie legitimately had super strength and superpowers and was getting heavier, I was like, this is really too much for me. I'm not sure about this. And exactly what you said, Pete. When Cheryl was Abigail, I was like, no! No! You do not do this! Not to Cheryl Blossom! No!
Not to Cheryl!
And it was actually, it started with Britta being like, I'm Abigail Blossom now, in her weird ghosty voice, that I was like, no thank you with this storyline. But again, I will watch the rest of the episodes and I'll be fine because I'm an adult who watches Riverdale and does a podcast.
You're both very fragile because I'm like, yes, I see this. I see what's happening and I love it. Give me more of this. Because, we talked, because it's wild. If someone was like, okay, Riverdale's on in an hour, you want to just guess what you think's going to happen? You would be 100. It's crazy to be 100% wrong about something. So that's why I'm here for this show.
Yes.
I will never not watch this show. And we talked about this during Rivervale, where they were like, a character's going to come over from Riverdale to Riverdale. And the fact that we're seeing that it's Abigail is a total twist. Did we? Yeah. We predicted a bunch of options. Did we say God. Abigail?
No, we did. Well, we talked about that maybe there would be flashbacks to Abigail and Thomasina, but no, we did not predict that Abigail's spirit would take over Cheryl's body. Yeah. So you seem fine with this, night. Justin. Pete,
just at night.
You're frustrated. I will say, just like, I always enjoy the stuff that's happening with the Blossom family because it's wildly over the top. Like you talked about, Pete, so many funny Nana moments in here.
Yeah.
I wrote down the line, her saying, when it's revealed to them that Betty and Archie were caught in an explosion, Nana saying, "Oh dear, were they killed?"
Yeah.
Made me laugh out loud. I also just love the detail of Cheryl when Britta comes in to tell her the news. She's reading a book, and the title of the book is Witchcraft, which made me laugh as well.
But I mean, how about the fact that, like, while you were doing that spell, I was whispering another spell underneath my breath. Like, what?
That's how it works. Listen for the secret spell. I've been casting spells this whole episode.
Man.
Hopefully you're going to pick up. No. I loved, was it Cheryl's line, was that curse for realsies?
Yeah.
Which I think is just like a perfect encapsulation of who Cheryl is, like super high-end weirdness, and then just regular, like, for realsies? Mm-hmm. Down-to-earth, normal person.
Also, just on a textual level for the whole episode, I thought it was kind of smart to throw in there the conversation between Britta and Cheryl, where Britta says, "Mistress Blossom, do we believe in magic and curses?" And then Cheryl says something to the effect of, "I believe a new age of wonderment is upon us," which to me was the very short Riverdale explanation of this is why there are ghosts now. This is why people have superpowers. This is why this stuff is happening. It's the Don Cheadle thing again, where it's like, it's happening, just move on, deal with it, don't worry about it. This is what the season's like at this point. I'm just
wondering, like, is it just are we gonna get like Cheryl during the day and then like Abigail at night, like just kind of like, I'm nervous and excited for what Abigail is gonna kind of do in the Cheryl body and like what that means for Riverdale.
I have a couple ideas about what she's gonna do
to get her out of the house and interacting more with Riverdale, because like Cheryl just kind of off on her own, we get these great glimpses and great stuff, but it's like, I want to see her like interacting with everybody,
Well, I think we will get more interaction. I think Cheryl with Abigail, Abigail's sort of going to be in the brooch, right? Like we're going to see whenever Cheryl's wearing the brooch, it's full Abigail happening.
Oh, okay.
That's what I think.
You're talking about that creepy spider brooch that Nana was palming? Like, oh, man, that was such
Yeah. Like clutching in her hand.
Yeah, it was like a heart, like Numchibai.
Very much. I speak Pete, so I know what that means. I think with Abigail being in the brooch, we're going to get to have like Cheryl and an evil Cheryl playing out over the course of the season. And I think she's going to be even more of a chaos agent because she doesn't like Betty, Archie, and Veronica.
Because Archie and Jughead.
Oh, sorry, and Jughead.
Yeah,
and because
remember
of the
there
curse.
was the scene with the curse where she comes in and tells them, Veronica's like, so I'm not involved, right?
Yeah, right. And out she goes. So she's going to hate them. So she's going to be doing weird shit to them, and then she's going to see Tony. Abigail's going to see Tony.
Oh, yeah,
and it's going to be on.
Well, just to weigh in and provide you that carrot, Pete, because you've been so good this whole time. So
good boy.
Good boy.
Don't fucking talk to me like that.
What a great boy. I would say great boy.
So this is not the whole span of the season, but you are right on par according to Roberto. Justin, basically what's going to happen here is that Abigail is going to be gunning for the three of them. She's going to see Tony, and in Tony, she's going to see Thomasina.
Yeah.
Probably not necessarily reincarnated. Maybe she's going to try to reincarnate her. I don't know necessarily. But she's going to see Thomasina, her true love there, and see, this is a time where women could be together where they weren't back when they had initially tried to be together. And that's going to create a big mess with Tony and Fangs and Abigail. He also emphasized to me that, which made me feel much better, Abigail is not for the life of the series. Cheryl is a main player. She is going to be back. And the season-long arc is that once Cheryl does come back, she's going to be dealing with this mess that Abigail left behind for her.
The classic, we got together because of this ghost that is inhabiting me. And then when the ghost is gone and Cheryl's there, she's going to be like, oh, yeah, I totally did all that. That was me trying to get us back together. Oh, man.
Classic. You've done that in a bunch of relationships, right, Pete?
Yeah. The problem is that eventually the line catches up to you and then you're in trouble.
Here's the thing, getting to what you were saying earlier, Pete, in terms of seeing Abigail take over Cheryl and being like, no, I'm losing my mind here. Part of my reason was I swear to God, if Abigail is for the life of the series and we never get Shoni again, I'm going to lose it. But knowing that now we're going to get, Thabigail, and we're also going to get Shoni, great stuff.
Maybe
that's what I'm saying.
Maybe we were wrong. Maybe this is what we need.
We
this
got
chaos
everything
factor.
we've ever wanted, Pete.
It's going to bring them back together. Oh, my God. Now I'm excited about it.
I think that's 100%
is going to do
right.
what Cheryl couldn't do, and she's going to get fucking Shoni back up.
Oh. I think that's 100% right. I think that's what's going to happen. And we get this sort of evil twin storyline we get to hang out in for a few episodes. I think that's fun.
Well, thank you, guys. I'm very excited now moving forward. You gave me a little pep in the step, so I appreciate that. It was
This is
nervous.
great. This is how conversations work. I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
You really grew up a lot today, Pete.
Before we wrap up here, real quick, any other moments from the episode that either of you guys want to call out? I did like Frank and Archie. For some reason, they're very awkward. Are you the dog's dad? So they'd be like, yes, what? Yes.
What? Oh, yeah.
I don't know. They're just two bumbling doofs, and it's very funny. Also, the line.
You get Archie and older Archie together.
Yeah. Pete?
I was just going to say the trash bag killer in the back of Glenn's car saying you shouldn't have done that to Betty was just...
That was pretty cool. I want to throw out a quick theory to you guys because I think this shuts down Glenna's TBK theories. Do you think, though, maybe there's a Fight Club situation going on?
Ooh, what? That Tyler Durden, Glenn, and the trash bag killer.
Is TBK the cat wrapped up to look like a human? You know what I mean?
We already said this on the podcast, but Toffee be killing.
Yeah.
Toffee be killing.
Yeah.
I love the idea of a Fight Club situation. I think that's a great theory.
We did have a bear go up against Archie. Why not a cat? I mean, it seems like a nice heightening.
That's what you're sticking with, I guess.
Just real quick, I'm saying I like Alex's theory and not listening to your theory.
My bad.
All right, there we go. Big episode, tons of stuff going on. Before we wrap up here, who was the MVP of this episode? Justin, why don't we go to you first? Who was the MVP?
I mean, what an episode. What a to kick off the season and be able to see all of this happening at once. I think the MVP for me was Archie. We're back into Archie going through some changes. He is ready to play hard. He's going to punch a wall. He seems very calm about the fact that he is now invincible. So that's classic Archie. Accept the reality around you.
Pete, what about you? Who's the MVP this episode?
Speaking of changes, I'm going to say Nana was the MVP of this episode because
all day, air day.
Because
Nana.
she is the one that is going to get the ships back aligned. She is going to be the chaos factor that gets all our ships back.
Real quick, the one thing, other thing that I'll mention from my interview with Roberto, he said that Nana has a whole plot line. She has an ulterior motive for summoning Abigail back. So exciting. Bring Nana into the main focus. I love it. I'm going to throw it out to Jughead just because I think, like I talked about, that storyline was treated very realistically.
It was really treated well, and, I thought it was cool the way it was done.
Absolutely. So I was very happy with that. I'm interested to see what superpowers or gifts or whatever he gets going forward, but we'll see what happens. If you would like to support this podcast, patreon.com/Comic Book Club. Also, we do a live show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. to Crowdcast on YouTube. Come hang out. We would love to chat with you about Riverdale. iTunes, Android, Spotify, Stitcher, or the app of your choice to subscribe, listen, and follow the show at Riverdale Dark on Twitter, Riverdale After on Instagram, Riverdale After Dark on Facebook, comicbookclublive.com for this podcast and many more. Until next time, we'll see you after dark.
For realsies?
Me.